Hi and welcome to the fantastic Amendoeira Golf Resort here in Portugal. My name is Chris Ryan and in this video we're going to show you how to set up to the golf ball and how your irons and your driver might be a little bit different. So thank you for joining me here in Portugal at Amendoeira. I've been out here for 4 days running a golf school and just stayed over to shoot some content, some videos to hopefully help you play better. So today we're going to show you how to set up to the golf ball, and we're going to do this in two parts. Firstly with the iron that I've got in my hands here, and then the second part is going to look at the driver and just covering some of the differences. Now, what we're not going to address in this video is ball position, because that will change through my irons, but we're going to look at really how you position your body, you know, the tilts, the angles, those kind of things, because they can be applied right through the golf bag. However, there are a few differences between the irons and the driver, and that's why we're going to cover these two in the video. So before we do anything, we need a target. So I've picked the target because it's fairly visible of the clubhouse, or actually the golf academy that you can see right in the distance. Now I've placed an alignment stick on the ground because that's going to give me a reference point for where my target is. If you are practicing, always good to just pop something down. Alignment sticks are fantastic. I use the Alignment Pro. A golf club is absolutely fine. You can just lay that on the ground. So let's first of all look from this front view as to how we're going to set ourselves up. And again, this is with the irons. So I would like to position my feet around about shoulder width apart. I would also like to have both of my feet slightly flared out. So if I was standing in a clock face, I would feel that my lead foot is around about 11 and my trail foot is around about 1 o'clock. We just want to keep away from feet which are very, very square on, which are going to limit rotation, feet which are too flared, although this would probably be a preference if I had to stray towards one or the other. A little bit too much flare would be okay. So we've got feet around about shoulder width apart, and we have got feet slightly flared out. Now, as my trail hand is going to be lower than my lead hand on the golf club, that's probably going to mean that my trail shoulder is going to be lower than my lead shoulder on the golf club. That would make sense. The angle that we have in the shoulders, let's say 10 degrees, just to keep that easy, we have to see a little bit of that referenced in the hips as well. So when I place my hands on the golf club, my right hand or my trail hand is lower. I really want to feel that affect my body position so that my lead hip is slightly higher than my trail hip and my lead shoulder is slightly higher than my trail shoulder. You'll also notice there is a subtle, and we are talking subtle, movement in my knees as I do that towards the target. As I adopt that position with a little bit of tilt in my body, I will also start to feel a little bit more pressure through my lead side. When I use my body track, which measures this, I like to see a golfer set 55% of weight into their lead side versus 45 in the trail side. I appreciate it's going to be hard for you to get those exact numbers, but if you can just feel a little bit more pressure into that lead side, that's going to be absolutely fantastic. I've also got the grip end of the golf club slightly closer to my lead thigh. Now, we talked about the grip end rather than the actual club shaft lean because, as we said, as we change ball position, that might change. However, I would like you to keep the location of the grip the same through the golf bag. You'll notice how with this mid iron, I have now got some forward lean of the golf club. I have got my sternum pretty much the middle of my heels, and I've got my hips, as we said, slightly forward. So this would be how I would set myself up with an iron from the face view. So what about from down the line, looking towards the target? Well, the first thing we're going to cover here is alignment. You can see how I've got this alignment stick, which we said is for reference. I would like my toes, my knees, my hips, my forearms, my shoulders, and my eyes all to fall parallel to that line that references my target. Very, very common is to see the upper body potentially aim a little left. We often see golfers with kind of head tilts where the eyes sit one side or the other, or we often see one where the feet go one way, the upper body goes the other way. So this alignment stick here is going to give me some fantastic visuals that I can help with my alignment. So really making sure that you're getting your body set correctly to the golf ball is key for the setup. So let's talk a little bit about how we actually set our body in terms of the tilts. What I would love you to do is take your grip on the golf club. Place your feet in position and just stand as normal as you can with your hands about a span from your belt buckle. And I want you to just put the club head just slightly lower than your hands. So you can see here, club head is lower than my hands, and I've got the grip end about the span of my hand from my belt buckle. What I want you to try and do now is I want you to feel like you're tipping forward from the hips, keeping your back straight until the club head reaches the ground. So I'm going to tip forward until the club head reaches the ground. Notice how my back stayed straight. I made that movement from my hips. My belt buckle would also feel like it's pointing more down towards the golf ball. Now, the longer I stand there for, I'm going to start to feel a little bit of tension in the back of my legs. So I need to relieve that tension by just popping the knees out of their sockets and just adding a little bit of flex. Just make sure when you do this, you don't change the angle of your pelvis. All too often I'll see when the golfers add the knee flex, the pelvis changes and they sit more into this golf shot. So you're going to feel like club head is lower than the hands. You're going to tip forward until it hits the ground. You're then just going to add a little bit of knee flex, and notice how I've got a nice angle in my belt. My back is nice and straight, and I'm tipped over the golf ball. To balance myself, I need to make sure that the back of my shoulders are about just in front of my knees, running through probably just my laces. What that's going to do is going to allow my arms to then hang freely of my body with a nice space where I don't feel I'm particularly cramped at setup. Now, what those positions will do is give me pretty good balance through my feet. I'm now going to feel very, very grounded heels and toes. I'm certainly not favouring hugely on the heels. I'm certainly not favouring hugely on the toes. And you can see what that would do to my shoulder position relative to my body. It would cause me to move forward and back. The two postures that we tend to see would be one where the movement towards the ground comes very much from the back, not from the hips. So you can see what that's done to my upper body. And then the other one, which is less common, is where there's too much tip from the hips and we get what we call S posture, where you can see that curve in the lower back. We often get the golfer's head too high, looking right down the nose to the golf ball. Both of these, the second one is actually more likely to limit ability versus the first one. So you're just going to go club low in the hands, tip over until you hit the ground, a little bit of knee flex. I've got my alignment good, I've got my balance points good, and I'm now set up ready to hit that golf shot. So let's look at how the driver might be different. Now, with the driver, there are a lot of things which are very similar. The alignment is going to be very similar, and certainly posture is going to be pretty similar to an extent as well. But there are going to be a couple of changes. So the first change I really want to make is I'd like to give myself a slightly wider base. So if we said our feet were shoulder width apart with our irons, we'd like to make that a little bit wider with the driver. The golf club is longer, it's going to be traveling a little bit quicker. Giving yourself a slightly bigger base to push off a little bit more stability is certainly going to help you. However, what you will notice is with that wider stance, the grip is still positioned the same relative to me. We said it was just on the inside of this lead thigh. You can see how that's the same. But my sternum now, whilst being middle of my stance, is now much, much further behind the golf ball because, as you'll notice, the golf ball has been pushed up in my stance. Now, we did say that we're not really going to cover ball position too much because with the irons, that ball position may well change. But with the driver, we certainly would like that golf ball positioned up towards that lead heel with that wider stance and those feet slightly flared out. That is going to give us a much, much better starting position. Now, as the ball is further forward in the stance, more towards my lead foot, to get that club in behind the ball, I may wish to increase the amount that I tip my body away from the target. Notice how when I tip my body away from the target, by pushing my hips forward and my lead shoulder high, the club moves forward. All too often, to get the club to the ball, I'll see golfers lean forward this way. And what that does, it really sacrifices my alignment. You can see how my upper body's now gone significantly left. I've changed the tilt in my body. So with the driver, not about this, I feel like you've got a little bit more tip away from the golf ball. But we're not tipping by moving your hips back. We're tipping by actually moving your hips forward, which raises the lead shoulder and puts a little bit more angle in your body. Down the line, looking towards the target, the posture is going to be very similar. There is going to be one main difference. Notice how when I set myself up with the driver versus the iron, my arms will tend to hang a little further away from me. With the irons, my arms are hanging a little bit more vertically. So there's a slightly greater distance between the grip end and my body. Very simply because the club is much longer, we have to set ourselves up slightly differently. So the other things that we mentioned, how we tip forward from the hips, the knee flex, those things are going to remain the same. Balance points, again, are going to remain the same. I'm not going to feel like it's more in my toes, more in my heels. But there are some subtle changes between irons and driver. Driver is certainly going to be difficult to hit consistently if the setup with the driver is as you would do for your irons. So that is how you set yourself up to the golf ball. There are some things that we haven't covered, as I said, like ball position, but that's going to be specific to the club. A 9-iron, a wedge is going to be different to maybe a 6-iron, a 5-iron. whatever it may be. I have done a video recently on ball position through the bag. I will link that down below, so if you would like to watch that video following this one, put the two together, it's going to give you some good information. Right, let's put all that stuff into play. I'm going to hit a driver. My target is that academy right in the distance. So I'm going to make sure that I've got all those things that we wanted. A little bit more forward push of the hips, a little bit more tilt. Alignment is good. Arms are hanging a little further away. Let's see if we can hit this drive up towards that academy. Okay, pretty good. Up the left-hand side, a little bit too much shape on it, but not a bad drive. And on the course, that'll probably be still in play. Just. So thank you to Arden for giving us access to the facility for these videos. I'm sure you'll agree, it looks superb there. And I can tell you as well, the two courses they have here are also exceptional. If you are ever in the area or looking for somewhere to play, I would definitely recommend this particular place. Thank you for watching. Usual stuff is down below, comments box, like button, and over there, there's a button which will allow you to become a free subscriber of my channel. Would love to have you along for the journey. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.